All right, welcome back to Sooner Surge Game Time as we preview Iowa State, Oklahoma tomorrow. Before we get started, make sure to hit subscribe, turn on your notifications so you can be updated for all the video content that we'll be releasing. Going to be a busy few days coming up here on the Sooner Surge. And tomorrow night, first night primetime game for Oklahoma, 6 p.m. start. OU versus Iowa State, guys. If there ever is a trap game, and this is the first trap game in the Britt Venables era, right here. This is it. So you got OU Texas looming next week. So guys, let's talk about Iowa State a little bit.
You would say that this is more of a trap game than last week?
Yes.
I wouldn't call. I don't think there's a trap game with OU this year because usually a trap game is when you're looking ahead. They're not looking ahead. It's still 1-0 on the week. That's been the motto all year long. I don't know how you could call it a trap game.
Hunter, define trap game.
When you're overlooking your opponent, you're like they're not worthy of preparing for what's prepared for a top 5 matchup against a top 5 team. In the following week at the State Fair of Texas and Dallas, the Cotton Bowl. That's what would make this game a trap game. If they're not doing that, I wouldn't call it a trap game.
Hunter, a trap game is when you play a team you're heavily favored in to win the week before you go to a big game. That's what this is. This is a trap game. Whether or not they get trapped and don't play well is a different story. But it's an absolute trap game.
It's pretty much.
I see what you're saying about Brent Venables. It's one game at a time. But
that's what I'm getting at. Like, they're not overlooking it. They're not overlooking it.
All coaches speak that, Hunter. That doesn't matter. All coaches say, let's take one game at a time. That doesn't mean it's not a trap game.
I don't know. I don't think it's a trap game. It's a night game at home against Iowa State. They're not as good as they've been over the past 5 years. They still have very talented defense. So it might be a little bit of the trap for the offense. You want to see the offense get rolling before they head down to Dallas, Texas to take on possibly a top 3 team in Texas if Texas takes care of business this week. So it is a good test on that part for the offense to kind of get into the swing of things. 5 games into the year, got to be able to capitalize, execute is what they need to do, really.
Well, in Iowa State, if you look at their team, I mean, before they played OSU and scored 34 points, they weren't putting up very many points offensively. So it's a game. I mean, if you look at the spread of the game, OU's favored by like 20, and the over-under is like 48, which means they think that OU's going to dominate, but OU's not going to score a ton of points is what it sounds like to me. More something like last week or it could be like a 30-10 game or 30 you know what I mean, something like that. I think that is the test this week for OU is offensively, can Dylan Gabriel, maybe the running game get going this week against a team that is decent defensively, but also they haven't played a ton of a big-time offensive opponent.
No. And Iowa State, right, they run the 3-3-5, the offenses that Oklahoma struggled with under Lincoln Riley. We saw it last season with Jeff Lebby. They didn't have a lot of trouble, but the thing is that with Oklahoma offensively, they're going to have to be okay with taking the dump down pass versus defense because they're not going to give up the explosive play. They're going to drop 8. They're going to rush 3. And also Oklahoma, they're going to have to be able to run the ball successfully. Right, they've struggled to run the ball early on this year. So if the offensive line is able to create a lot of movement, because this is not an Iowa State defensive line that has a guy like Will McDonald on it back. Like they're just not that talented up front as they have been in years past. And at linebacker, they're okay, but really the strength of their defense is their secondary. And so I think for Oklahoma, they're just going to have to be able to maintain drives, get down into the red zone, and when they do get into the red zone, they're going to have to capitalize with touchdowns.
Yeah, you mentioned the rush 3, drop 8. I think that can get the run game going. I think if I obviously hope Sooners never get into 3rd and long. That means the first few plays of the drive didn't go well. But I could see we saw it last week. It was 3rd and 19 against Cincinnati, back to the end zone. They handed it off to Marcus Major. He picked up 19 yards. to pick up the first down. So I could see some run plays on 3rd and long if Iowa State's going to try to drop 8 into coverage, kind of shut down the middle of the field. It's the recipe for success on 3rd and longs has been kind of that short pass, just enough to the down marker, mostly to Andrew Anthony. Iowa State, if they drop 8, they're going to take that away. So I could see a few handoffs going for some big plays. You need the explosive plays from the running backs, whoever it may be tomorrow.
That was kind of where I was going to go next. Is who do you think is going to get the bulk of the carries tomorrow, guys?
It's going to be the Gavin Sawchuk show tomorrow.
I think Sawchuk
right now.
Yeah, I think he might get some more run.
I'm going to disagree with you guys. I think it's going to be Tawee Walker. Last game, it was Marcus Major. I think he had like 15 to the 5 that Tawee had. I think it's this week it's going to be back to Tawee Walker. Big game on the ground for him. Hope it's Sawchuk gets some run, but if we're just going off of what it has been, it's been Tawee Walker and Marcus Major. So I would think it's going to be Tawee this week.
Yeah, and Oklahoma, they need to get, in my opinion, which is their 2 most overall just purely talented backs in Sawchuk and Barnes going before the Red River game. But really, I mean, they just haven't found a role for him yet. And obviously, Brent Venables said on Tuesday, it's just hard to play 4 backs. It just is. You can't split the snaps with them all. It's hard because then if you give each guy like 5 to 8 carries, no one's going to get into a rhythm. No one's going to be able to establish themselves as the number 1 back. So you're going to need – so this game also, I think we will see hopefully someone establish himself as that clear number 1 back. And I also think that Oklahoma offensively at wide receiver can Andrew Anthony and Jaleel Farouk just once again have massive games. And with that, I mean, if they catch the ball short, can they make a few guys miss in space? Can they get a lot of yards after the catch? Make the Iowa State defense scoot up, play a little bit more aggressive, and then that opens up the deep shot. Because Iowa State, they're a pretty solid tackling team. Now, I know they didn't play well versus Oklahoma State, but I still think this may be the best or the second best defense we face all year long.
Yeah, mostly because of the schematics of it and who the defensive coordinator is. They've been just so successful on the defensive side of the ball for so long, like really through this entire – since the first time or second time in program history that they beat OU in 2017. Since then, Iowa State has been a very tough opponent for OU. I think it was – I don't remember what games Venables was accounting for, but in 3 of the games over the past, 6 years, the score is 101 to 100 OU. So very close matchups. I do think you can't go into this matchup like how the game plan was executed against SMU where you don't throw the ball deep. This is a talented secondary. They have a few guys that will probably be on NFL rosters in a few years. You got to test them. You got to get that deep ball kind of just flowing. You got to build the confidence for Dylan Gabriel as you're everyone knows what next week is. If you're able to get stuff like that rolling, deep ball side of things, that could be huge for next week against Texas.
Yeah, so keys to the game, guys. Looking at it, I'll start with the key to the game. I think, if you go back to last year, do you remember all the hype leading into the Kansas State game at home? Night game, under the new lights they had, and OU just didn't have a good performance. And to me, starting off hot again, and I say this a lot, but you can't – last week, OU – and Brent Venables said this, they could have put Cincinnati away early multiple times, and they didn't do it. One of these games, if you do not do that, it's going to bite you. And I'm not saying it's going to be Iowa State, but if you're at home, if you let the OU fans sit on their hands and you're bored and because it's a bad start offensively, I'm just saying it's not a good way to go. So to me, the key of the game is starting off hot. You start off hot, you can, especially with a team like this offensively at Iowa State, you get PJ and Trace Ford and Bothroyd pinning their ears back with the lead. It's going to be a long night for them.
Yeah, I think it needs to be. You need an explosive play on that first drive.
Yeah.
Really, you look at when OU's had the most success in the 4 games they have, which again, that's a super small sample size. 2 of them against not good football teams. Like that's all you can say about them. And those 2 blowout wins that they had. But both of those games, they put up 60-plus points, 66 against Tulsa, 73 against Arkansas State. They had an explosive play on that first drive. You got to do that against a very good defense in Iowa State this week. Because I really, confidently can say, I think the OU defense is going to take care of business in this game. We haven't really talked about Iowa State offense much, and there's a reason for that. It's just OU's defense has been that good this year, and Iowa State's offense isn't that great. So I think that defense is going to do their job. It's just we've seen a few times this year where the offense hasn't necessarily executed, so they need just a fast start to just get it all rolling and pile it on. If they can get up 20 points in the first quarter, that's the type of performance they need in a primetime game at home.
Yeah. Well, I would say that my key to the game for the offense is run the ball. Like it's point blank period, run the ball. They have not been able to run the ball all year long. It has not been very effective. So if they're able to establish that average like 5 to 6 yards a carry, then I think we could see the run game, the offensive line kind of start to find their rhythm and get everything maybe headed in the right direction going into Red River.
Well, you have Bird back, so that's going to be interesting to see how he plays on the offensive line. Also, I'm kind of with you, Jackson, on the running the ball, but I'm not a big proponent on if a team is lining up to stop the run. I could care less if you run it. But if a team is rushing 3 guys, then you should be able to run the ball. And that's my thing. If they're playing against a team that's trying to stop the run, I'm saying throw it every down, whatever. But if a team is dropping and you have a chance to run the ball, you got to be dominant up front and run the ball. You're right. And I think Bird's going to help this week having him back.
Yeah, running the ball they need. We haven't really had a home run play from a running back yet. Marcus Majors had a few somewhat like big plays. He's had a few.
They get held back. Penalty.
Yeah, the penalties have been brutal. Welcome to the Big 12 officiating, where it only goes one way. Anyhow, Majors had a few 20-yard carries that were big at times. I know we talked about like getting into the rhythm in the run game, and you're splitting it with 4 backs. Couldn't do that. Last week they did. I think it was like 5 carries to Marcus Major in the third quarter, and then it was capped off with the Dylan Gabriel rushing touchdown. That's the kind of rhythm they need to get into this week if they're going to try to establish the run. Which, again, they're rushing 3. You got to establish the run.
Yeah, and I think that just with Oklahoma offensively, you just need to do what you got to do in a sense, and that you just need to stick to what is working in the game. If you are running the ball successfully, you don't need to try and go into drives where you draw back and try and throw it 3 straight times and cause drives to stall. Like just stick with what works. And maybe versus a team like Iowa State, it's okay at times to play in that conservative mode. Like just because if they're going to allow you to run for 5 to 6 yards a carry all the way downfield, that's okay. And I would say my key to the game for the defense is just really just don't allow explosive plays. Just don't allow Iowa State to have the maybe big 30, 40-yard pass. I think the longest play Oklahoma's allowed on the season is it 47 yards, 37 yards, Hunter? Jay, do you guys know exactly?
I'm not sure.
I don't know the exact amount. I know they've had a few, pretty much besides Arkansas State, they've had at least one broken play and through these, so in 3 games. But they've done very well of bending but not breaking.
Yeah.
They broke a few times, or they bended it a few times against Cincinnati. Then they only allowed 6 points to them. I believe that was the first time that Cincinnati hasn't scored a touchdown since they played Bama in the playoffs a few years ago. That's a long time to be able to shut down an offense in Cincinnati that's had a lot of success over the last few years.
Yeah, Jackson, you were kind of talking about the conservatism and all that but if you look at OU's offense this year, to me, Levy's called great games except for SMU. I think last week against Cincinnati, he called a great game, and they didn't execute it. But SMU is the only one where I think they were just very conservative and just not very good called game at all. Defensively, it's interesting because Iowa State has not ran the ball well at all, and OU is stopping the run. So I don't see that changing. I think OU is going to stop the run and make Rocco Beck, a redshirt freshman, try to beat them. And I think OU's defense, like you said, Hunter, I think OU's defense will have a lot of success tomorrow. So what do you guys think about who do you think is going to be the MVP of OU tomorrow? Sooner standout. Who's going to be the guy that's going to stand out?
Let's start with the offensive Sooner standout.
Offensive Sooner standout. Who you got?
I mean, I've already said mine. I think it's going to be Gavin Sawchuk. I think Sawchuk's going to get onto the field and play. We're going to see the speed, the quickness he has out on the outside on the perimeter, and I think Sawchuk's going to have himself a huge day.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Drake Stoops. He's had a few big games so far. I think he had, I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 touchdowns against Arkansas State before he got hurt. That was all in the first quarter. I know he had like 54, 56 yards in that game. Then he had 2 touchdowns against Tulsa. I think this is going to be a 100-yard performance from Drake Stoops. I think they're going to find ways to get him the ball and get him rolling. The primetime matchups in Norman, he's always had big nights. I think it's going to be another one.
Offensively, I'm going to say player of the game. I'm going to go with Jalil Farouk. I think they're going to do a lot of stuff with him, maybe in the short passing game, screen type stuff, reverse. I think he's going to get the ball a lot with them dropping a lot, and I think he's going to have a big game. What about defensively, guys? Defensively, I'll start this one out. Defensive Sooner standout. I'm going to say PJ Adebaware. I don't know if I said that right. I'm trying. I'm getting better. Adebaware. Is that right?
No, it's like Adebawara or something.
Adebaware. Okay. Anyway, I think
it's hard to say.
I think he is going to have 2 sacks tomorrow. I'm going with him. He's gotten more and more reps every week, and I think he's going to have a huge game. I really do. He may even cause a turnover. He almost caused one last week on the sack. I think this offensive line for Iowa State is their weakness, and I'm just saying whoever's playing left tackle when he gets out there, he's going to make some moves. So,
well, I mean, we all heard what Brent said to Miguel Chavis after the game that he needs to get more snaps, and I believe did he play the most snaps or second most snaps out of any defensive end during the Cincinnati game? Hunter, do you remember that?
I don't think he was up there for most. I would think that'd be Rondell Bothroyd. Bothroyd seemed to be in a good chunk of the game, but that was the most he's played all year. He's been steadily playing more against Tulsa. He had like 2.5 tackles for loss in that game, and first career sack. He had a good amount of run there, and then Cincinnati, he had that almost a strip sack, like what Jay mentioned, but Emory Jones was able to get that out.
Yeah, well, I'll say from my defensive Sooner standout, I think I might take the easy way out on this one, but, I'm going to go with Woody Washington. I think he's going to have an interception versus Iowa State. They're not a very good offense. Their wide receivers are not very good, I don't think. They don't have an offensive line. So obviously they're going to be forced to throw the ball probably quickly. And I expect Oklahoma's corners to play very aggressively, the secondary to play very aggressive. So I think that we'll see Woody Washington have himself an interception and prove why he's been one of the best and one of the most underlooked corners nationally.
I guess I'll say the one that no one has said, Danny Stutzman. He's the best player on this team. It's not even close. He's playing at an All-American level. If he continues on the pace he's on, he's going to win the Buckets Award for the best linebacker in the country. It's just the jump he has made. I mean, he's lived up to every bit of what Teddy Lehman said he could be, what everyone knew Danny Stutzman had the potential to be, and he's done it so far this year. He had like 17 and a half tackles against SMU, had the pick six against Tulsa, had a few pass breakups, like one pass deflection, and then was in coverage for one last week and a sack, and either 9 or double digits amount of tackles. I can't remember on that one. I think Danny Stutzman has a very big game against an Iowa State offense that honestly might be the worst offense OU has faced all year, and that's including Arkansas State. Like they're not much better than the Red Wolves.
I think they may be the lowest scoring offense out of any Power 5 school, like 16 and a half points.
They were going into the last week.
Okay.
Yeah, then they played Oklahoma State, and they got that stat boost.
They got
going
right
up against Mike Gundy.
Yeah, so nationally tomorrow, guys, it's not as big as last week games. There was a lot of big games last week, but it's still a pretty good slate they got out there. And starting with tonight, guys, Utah at Oregon State. This is a good matchup. Oregon State's been really good this year, and I'm picking Oregon State in the upset here.
Same as well. I'm going to pick Oregon State. They've done a great job over there. I don't remember the name of their head coach, but I mean they've built a solid program over there, and their QB is DJ Uyunglele.
Yeah.
And obviously he's kind of having maybe a revitalized year. So I think that Oregon State is going to upset Utah as well.
I'm going to go with Utah. Cam Rising, as we're recording this, still not sure if he's going to play. But Utah's now had, this is what, their 5th game of the year, and they've had to get by without Cam Rising.
Well, they've had a tough schedule.
Exactly. That's what I'm getting at. Like, people were like, oh, it's Florida. No, Florida just beat Tennessee a few weeks ago. They're a top 25 team. So Utah's had a very tough schedule. They've had to do it without Cam Rising. Even if Cam Rising doesn't play, I'm going to take the Utes. But I hoping Cam Rising plays tonight, and I think he will have a big win for them on the road against the Beavers.
All right. What about tomorrow? Who we got?
Let's start it off.
Yeah, Colorado.
Yeah, this is the one that's been talked about a lot. USC Colorado. Wish Travis Hunter was playing in that game. It would make it a very, very, very good game to take the upset in. If he was, I still think Colorado gives them a really good run for their money. I don't think it's going to be a Oregon situation where they get the brakes beat off of them. I think Colorado is going to keep it close. We watched USC last week in their 11 p.m. Central Time kickoff or whatever time. It was super late. It was a late game, that Pac-12 after dark. Against Arizona State, give up 28 points, the most that Arizona State scored all year with a backup quarterback. A backup quarterback, a team that their best player is Jalen Rashada, and the rest of the team is not good. And he didn't even play in that game, and they still gave up 28 points. So I think Colorado keeps it one possession. I think Shedeur Sanders has multiple hundreds of yards passing, probably 400 or so.
Yeah, I think that USC is going to end up on top in this game. I don't want them to win, but I just think that the fact of the matter is that USC is Caleb Williams at quarterback, the best player in the country, the former Heisman. There's nothing he can't do, and I do think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a one-score game, but I think that USC is going to hang on.
Colorado, I've been picking them to lose for a few weeks now. They're winning this game. Colorado, listen, here's the deal.
I'm saying, dude, it's Dion.
Listen, this is just like, to me, this game, if you look at OU versus Texas Tech under Lincoln Riley. That's what this game's going to be tomorrow. It's going to be 50 to 40 something. And
Yeah.
I can totally see Colorado pulling the upset here. It's an early kick. It's early in Colorado. And I don't know. USD's traveling. I think they're going to be asleep the first quarter, and they're going to get shell-shocked. And you get behind. I know you got Caleb Williams, but let's go prime time. Let's show us what you're made of prime time. Let's get a victory over Lincoln, Tebow, Riley.
Yeah,
we got next, Hunter?
That game might be the earliest game USC's ever had to play in their local time.
Sure it is.
Like they're used to the late game.
Is it going to be like 8 a.m. their time or like 9
9 a.m. local, I believe.
Who we got next?
Kansas at Texas.
Texas rolls them. Texas rolls them, period.
I think that's should happen. Again, it's Texas against Kansas. There was a few years of where Kansas's only conference win would come against the Longhorns. This is arguably the best Kansas team. I think they're a little better improved than they were last year. And last year they won, 6 games? Maybe 7, I can't remember. They made the bowl game and then lost in heartbreaking fashion to Arkansas last year. So I'm going to go Texas, a top 3 team in the country. I think they're going to head into the Cotton Bowl undefeated.
You know, I'm going to pick the Jayhawks to upset.
Oh my gosh.
I think Texas is going to make the same mistake that we've seen Oklahoma make, and they're going to look ahead to the Oklahoma game. And Lance Leipold and Jalen Daniels, they are going to get the job done, and they're going to upset Texas at Texas. And, man, and I think there's an argument that Lance Leipold is a top 10 coach in the country at Kansas. I mean, what are they? They're 4-0 right now. They're ranked. I think, like, the back-to-back seasons, they've been 4-0 to start the year, which is just incredible. I think the Jayhawks are going to upset Texas.
Yeah, moving on to the matchup with really the most impact on the trajectory of the season in the SEC West. LSU at Ole Miss, the winner of this game, should be in the driver's seat for first place in the SEC West. They should be able to, take that division. LSU traveling to Oxford. I'm going to take the Tigers. Struggled last week at home against Arkansas, but I think they're going to get it together and give Ole Miss their second straight loss.
Yeah, I agree. I think that LSU is not going to have, I would say, maybe much trouble. I think it'll be probably a 10-point game, but I think LSU is going to win.
I think the tailgating starts early. Ole Miss pulls off the victory, boys, tomorrow.
Yeah, moving on, Notre Dame at Duke.
Cinderella, Duke.
Yeah,
Duke.
No one thought this would be a top 20 matchup at the beginning of the year, and then Duke beat Clemson by 21 on Labor Day, and since then they're like number 17 going up against the 11th ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Notre Dame's coming off of that heartbreaking loss where they would have had the 11th man on the field. They probably win that game because, I mean, let's be honest, he barely scored running where there was no defender there. He barely got in. So I think Notre Dame's going to bounce back with a win on the road.
I'm going Notre Dame.
Well, I'm going to take Duke. I said it. I'm going to take Duke.
Yeah, I think their Cinderella story ends right here. I think Notre Dame beats them, bounces back. Freeman's a good coach. He'll get it right. They're going to win this game. Any more picks?
Yeah, we got one more by the request of Jason. So
it's my upset special. Ahead. My upset special. Nebraska beats Michigan tomorrow. Mark it down. They will beat Michigan. Matt Rule's going to get his first big win, and Nebraska will beat Michigan tomorrow. That's my upset special.
This game may not be within 40 points, dude. That's how bad Michigan's going to beat them.
I don't know
Michigan
about
can't
40.
score 40.
Yeah. If Nebraska had a quarterback, Jay, I would agree with you.
Yeah.
Maybe pull off the upset at home. I mean, I think they have the longest sellout streak in the country, and they're not stopping anytime soon in Lincoln. So it's definitely a possibility to be able to win that big game at home, but it's a quarterback play that they have. It's not there. It's hard to beat anybody with that quarterback situation.
Yeah, that is the problem.
To the final game, most important game to our viewers, Iowa State at Oklahoma, 6 p.m. kick on Fox Sports 1. I'll start off with I think OU wins this game by 30 points. I think the defense doesn't allow more than 10 points. I think the offense starts to figure it out. So I'm taking OU by 30.
I'm going to go 38-10 Oklahoma. I think OU pulls away kind of later on. I think it's 38-10. You know, another great defensive performance. They're going to keep them in almost single digits, 10 points, and win by 28 points.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the second straight week in which Oklahoma defensively does not allow a touchdown. And I think Oklahoma is going to win 42-9. Nice. I think they're just going to beat the brakes off Iowa State. I think this is an Oklahoma team that knows that they still have a lot that is left to be proven because of what happened last season. I know that the players hate the 6 and 7 taste in their mouth. So still, and man, I can tell you, I cannot wait for next week.
Yeah, got to get by this week. Got to go 1-0 this week.
Yep.
Got to make a dominating performance. Keep it going. Make sure you click subscribe to our channel, please. Really appreciate all the subscribers. Keep coming. Please drop your comments here in the bottom about your score prediction of OU versus Iowa State. Tomorrow night, prime time. Let's rock. It's going to be a great day to tailgate. It's going to be low 90s. It's going to be pretty good weather, a little warm, but it's great weather, no rain or anything. Get out there, support this team, and let's get another W, go 5-0, and head into the Cotton Bowl week undefeated and big-time matchup next week, guys. Till next time, guys. Thanks for watching. Boomer.
Boomer.